History is full of older generations complaining about younger generations, but this week's guest on No Gray Areas is a young man, and you're going to want to hear his story. His life is about to change. You'll hear why, and he gives us much hope about this future generation. Watch now, No Gray Areas. Khristian Curtis, thank you so much for being on the No Gray Areas podcast. I'm actually really excited to have you on here. And the little bit that I've heard about you, you are proof to all of us older people that are a few decades ahead of you in life. You're proof that we're handing things off to some really good people behind us in the generations behind us. So I would love to, in the next moments, unpack a little bit about your life. You're on the verge. This is what's exciting. You're on the verge of doing something that most little boys dream of. I dreamed of it, and I worked really hard to get there, and I wasn't good enough to get there. But you're about to. So we want to unpack a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, your story, you're a baseball player, but then also tie it to the complexity of human choice and the power of human choice that we have. So, Khristian, first of all, you grew up where?
I grew up in a town called Groves, Texas. It's really close to the Louisiana border, about 15 minutes east of Beaumont, Texas.
Yeah.
It's the biggest town next to it. So
you're helping us so we can find something on the map.
Something on the map that's somewhat close to it.
Yeah.
And so I grew up there. I lived in Tennessee. It's called Inglewood, Tennessee for right around 6 or 7 years whenever I was younger. It's right in between the Chattanooga and Knoxville.
Yeah.
So it's like 30 minutes from both. So,
and you were telling me you were in Tennessee because your dad's from there. Did it have anything to do with music? Because I know your dad has he's a musician.
Yes, sir. He's a musician. But it was for his work. I think he had an option. We could either stay in Texas or go to Tennessee, and we decided to go to Tennessee with because we had other family there. So we ended up going back and forth a couple times.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So what's home? That's Tennessee home or Texas home?
Texas is home to me. That's where I was born. So
yeah. You were born there, and then you were there from 10 on?
From age 10
Yeah.
until.
And then you were just telling me before we turned these mics on that the two small towns, they actually combined for a high school, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So pretty big high school. You said it was 5A.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then I asked you the question, which is interesting because I'm from Montana originally, and that's what happens in Montana, but it's mainly because they're tiny little towns where two towns will combine for sports, but only certain sports. So they'll combine for a football team, but not for basketball, which is really interesting because you're teammates for one season and then rivals for another one. But that's not your situation, right?
No, sir. Everything, it was all together.
All year round. So you grew up playing with these guys in baseball and basketball and these different sports, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Even I played for some teams. Like Houston is about an hour and a half from where I'm from, so I would play for some more travel ball teams in Houston as I got older because I wanted to play like at some higher levels, some better competition, and just get the bigger name teams. Yeah. So it kind of helped get my name out there even more, and so that was kind of a little situation that my little brother's in now. So
okay, so let me jump ahead in the story a little bit, and then we're going to come back because the listeners don't know the backstory here. So you're playing at ASU right now. You're a pitcher.
Yes,
correctly.
Sir.
Correct. And then we have the draft coming up, and right now you're listed in like the top 100 players.
Yes, sir. I am. It's it's been a blessing just coming off these last 2 injury years and just having a couple good outings and seeing your name pop up like that. It's something that I don't really think about much just because I just want to focus on the season, keep improving, getting better in my game, like my craft, my pitches, everything like that. So it's definitely something that down the road I'm very excited about and looking forward to. But right now it's just kind of something that I just kind of put in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Just
you're trying
focus
to
on what's in front of me right here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But this is what's interesting about it. That's why I wanted to jump ahead in the story so our listeners could understand. You know, barring injury or something that happens, there's a pretty good chance that starting next year you're playing professional ball. And that is so cool because you know how many young boys or girls, but you know we're two dudes, so you know how many young boys were in their backyard throwing the ball, practicing, going to practice, dreaming of maybe doing what you are about to do, right? So
yes, sir.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So let's back up then, all right? So now the audience knows that's where you are right now is you potentially could be playing professional ball next year. So let's back up a little bit. So you're playing high school. What college was looking at you coming out of high school?
So out of high school, I had some pretty big schools offer me. It was kind of Texas A&M was my dream school to play at, and so I was fortunate enough to play with Coach Childress, was the head coach at Texas A&M at the time. I played with his son on they're called the Banditos. So that was one of those teams out of Houston that I started playing with when I was 12, and so that already at that age I had a good relationship with Coach Childress, his family, and me and his son were really good friends, and we still are to this day. But they're at Nebraska now. So after there was a coaching change my freshman year, but so I played with his son Max for a while, and just we had a really good relationship, and it just kind of kept going on until the point where it was going into my sophomore year of high school. They invited me out to one of their camps, and they ended up offering me that next week.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, I think my first 3 offers came in 2 days. So it was
your
crazy.
Sophomore year in high school?
Yes, sir.
You're like 15 or 16 years old.
I think
you got D1 schools already saying, "Hey, we want you."
I just turned. It was before I turned 16.
Yeah.
So
you're 15 then.
I was 15 years old at the time, and that's kind of how my little brother is now. He just recently committed to Arizona State as well to play baseball.
How cool is that? So he's going to come behind you,
right?
Because this is your last season. Yeah.
It could be, yes, sir.
It could be.
If everything goes, how it goes to the plan, and just trust God and let him do let him work, and
yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit on that too. So you bring up your brother. Where you have a couple of siblings, right? So
yes, sir.
Are you a middle child?
I'm
oldest,
the
youngest?
second youngest.
You're the second youngest. So
yes,
is there 3 of you, 4 of you?
Yes, sir. There's 4 of us, but 3, not including me.
Yeah. Okay. So you're the second youngest. So you have your younger sibling is obviously into sports. Were your older
yes,
ones?
Sir. My older brother was. He went to Centenary College of Louisiana for short term, and then he's back in Texas working now, and about to finish school, and so he's doing that. And then my older sister she's got 2 kids, and she's married. She has an 8-year-old. His name's Preston. He's gonna be the best one of all of us. He's a freak athlete.
Really?
At 8 years old. It's not even fair.
So you're Uncle Khristian. Huh?
Oh yes, sir. They call me Uncle KK.
Uncle KK.
I have a niece I think she's about to turn 4.
Yeah.
She's about to turn 4. And so I love them to death. They're always, every time I come into town or they come here, they got to stay with me. They got to.
Are they in Texas?
Yes, sir. They're in Texas. Okay. All my family is back in that in
that area,
Port Neches, Groves, Beaumont area now. So
were you guys a big sports family? And then on that, baseball, like, were there any other sports you play, or you guys all landed and just going like, hey, we just play baseball well?
Growing up, me and my brothers, we all played baseball, basketball, football all the way until high school. Yeah. So my little brother, he actually had to quit playing other like contact sports because he's had he's had a couple concussions in the last few years. And
so
football's out of the picture, and he's had actually more concussions playing basketball than he has because this year he was a freshman on varsity for the basketball team and for the baseball teams now. So
really,
but he had to quit basketball because he's not a lot smaller than the kids. He's a tall kid. He's probably 6'1", 6'2" at 15 years old. And so he got elbow to the head, dropped down, like hit his head on the ground. So the doctor said that was it for him. Like that was his pretty much last. Concussions. Right. Yes, sir.
Isn't it crazy watching you're seeing this right now? I was an older brother, I had a younger brother, and the age difference, you kind of dominate them for so many years, but when they start coming into those years where they catch up with you, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? You're there now,
he's
right?
He's getting there. He's definitely the best athlete out of all the brothers, or out of all of our siblings. So he works hard. I guess he's seen like kind of what it took for me to get to where I'm at, and he tries to one up me on everything. So I mean, he's definitely in a very good spot. He's the hardest working kid I've ever met before. So
you seem like you guys are a pretty close family.
Oh yes, sir.
Are you?
Yes, sir. We're very close.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I just think it's just the dynamic of our family. We're all just love to be around each other. We're everybody's people person. So it's there's never a dull moment, and so it's always especially my little brother. He's the clown of all of us. But it's always like there's never a dull moment. It's always a good time with everybody. It's just love being around each other.
Yeah.
So
your parents must have done something though to bring that out.
Yes, sir. I think
as a family, right? What do you think they did?
Just at a young age, they were always around, like sports, just constantly just driving us everywhere. And we never really had video games growing up. Like we had like PlayStations and stuff, but we were never really playing those because whenever we lived out in Tennessee, it was out in the woods. Like we had a front yard was massive, so we'd be outside just throwing baseball, playing football. And my dad would be out there with, like, everybody would play. So it was just kind of like a thing as a young kid that everybody would just do everything together. So that's just kind of what my family's formed, and still to this day, like whenever they can, my whole entire family comes out here.
So you go to Texas A&M. That's the school that you go to, but you have an injury your first year, right?
Yes, sir. So I unfortunately I had a couple just that summer coming into A&M. I had a pretty big jump in velocity on the mound. I went from high school, I would typically sit like 90, 92, 93. I would top a 94 every now and then. And
you were throwing a 92, sometimes a 94 mile an hour ball in high school?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
But that's not even to this day. Like nowadays, that's not even
really.
Like there's kids throwing 100 in high school right now. It's unreal.
Oh my goodness.
But that summer leading into A&M, there was a couple outings where I was up to 98, and so that put too much stress on my elbow, and ended up having some nerve issues with that.
Was that before you even started playing for Texas A&M?
Yes, sir.
During this, okay, so
before I started,
they picked you up. You're going to go play for Texas A&M, but you haven't even gotten into a game yet. You end up having this injury.
Yes, sir. So I didn't have the full injury right then. It was whenever I got to A&M, we did a couple procedure. There's a PRP injection, just trying to calm that nerve down, the inflammation in my elbow down. And so they went in to do an exploratory surgery. My nerve was swollen, like it was inflamed big time. And then my UCL just happened to be not fully popped off the bone, but it was on one side of it. It was just kind of hanging off the bone. So that was kind of, there was no
definitely can't pitch with that,
right? And they call it like there's no brakes stopping your arm. So in that case, it was just kind of just free go. Like it was super. Painful? It was uncomfortable. Sorry.
Okay, uncomfortable.
Yes,
I
sir.
said painful. You said uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. It didn't really hurt at the time. It just kind of, I felt like my arm give out.
Yeah.
And that was like the kind of cue for me that like there's definitely something up here. Yeah. And so on top of the nerve, the nerve didn't feel good at all. So that leads to the next surgery. I rehabbed it back from that first surgery to find out that it was done wrong. And
surgery was done wrong.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
So the first surgery.
How many months have gone by?
Almost a year. Okay. So
you've been rehabbing for a year.
I got back to actually throwing at bullpens and throwing in game again last season, my sophomore year at A&M. And so I was one of our starters there, and I threw 5 starts. My first outing before the season, I was up to 98 again. And each week, there was a little drop in my velocity. So week 1, I was like 95. Week 2, I was probably around 92, 93. Week 3, 91, 92.
So were you feeling any pain at this time, or like the velocity's going down?
I was in a lot of pain. Like I was.
Okay. So you know something's wrong.
Yes, sir. And they put me on some steroid packs to ease inflammation, and so it was my nerve, it was killing me. And so I was just like, there's something wrong. I don't know what's going on. The doctor was like, it's normal for this to happen to the nerve. It's still taking time to get used to it, because they moved the nerve. They did the ulnar nerve transposition in that first surgery.
Okay.
So they just moved my nerve from under my, like in that little groove, the funny bone.
Okay.
They moved it up above out of that little slot that it typically runs through.
Okay.
So it was a weird procedure, because they did. It's hard to explain, but
just moving nerves around in your
right,
arm. Okay.
It's gonna take time to get used to, and so fast forwarding to the second surgery, my last outing before my second surgery, I completely lost all feeling in my arm. I couldn't grip the baseball. Like my velocity was down to up like mid upper 80s miles per hour.
So
which is,
explain to someone that doesn't know baseball the difference between, you said you were getting 98, 99, and now you're down in the high 80s.
Yes, sir. So
someone that doesn't know baseball, what does that mean to them?
like that's a huge drop off because like my off speed, like my slower pitches at the beginning of the season were harder than my fastball was at the end of the season, like at the end of my time.
Okay.
So going from 98 to 88 is a huge difference in fastballs. So it's right off the bat, like after I knew there was something up as soon as I saw that velocity decrease that quickly. And so that led to me, like, at my last outing, I lost all feeling in my arm, couldn't grip the baseball. My strength there was no strength at all in my arm. And so I ended up having some nerve conduction test. They like hooked me up to a machine, like put needles in my arm and started pretty much shocking my arm to see like where the nerve was responding, I guess, stuff like that. And they're like, there's definitely something up. So that next week I actually had surgery, my second surgery on April 1st of 2022.
So coming up on a year ago.
Yes, sir. Right? Coming up on a year ago. And so I went in for surgery, and immediately they opened up my arm. The surgeon came out and told my parents, like, look, we don't know if he's ever going to be able to use his arm again. Like there's something, his nerve is like pretty much not torn through, but from the first surgeon left sutures in my nerve. And so it was cutting away at my nerve the whole time I was throwing. And so that eventually led to me losing all feeling in my arm. And so they were like, they called in a nerve trauma specialist. They luckily he was able to save the nerve. He pretty much he put an extra barrier around the nerve to like make sure nothing like else happens to it, keeps it in line, and where it was like stuck in one spot because of the sutures. Yeah. So now it can move freely, like with the way it should be. Yeah. And so that happened, and they weren't going to let me come back right away after that surgery anyway. So they went ahead, and since my UCL was perfectly fine in that procedure, everything looked good, but they went ahead and they call it a hybrid Tommy John. They didn't reconstruct the UCL, they just reinforced it. Okay. So they took a tendon out of my wrist and put it in the elbow to just kind of reinforce it and pretty much make it stronger. Yeah. And so this
is major surgery you're going
Yes,
through.
Sir.
Now, so when you get out of this surgery, like he came out during the surgery and said, this is bad.
Right.
We don't know if he's going to use his arm again. When you came out of surgery, was it still like, we got to see, or was there a little more hope now?
There was hope. They ended up coming back out like later towards the end of the surgery and was like, he was able to save his nerve. He's like, we don't know if he's going to have permanent nerve damage or not, but there's a good chance he does. And so they were like, the good news is he'll be able to use his arm. He'll be able to pitch. He'll be able to do everything. So that was a big relief for my parents because whenever they came out the first time, they were freaking out. And
but you didn't know that. He didn't tell you that.
No, sir.
Your parents told you later?
Yes, sir. Because I was in surgery. It was a 5.5 hour long procedure. And then whenever I woke up, I went under for surgery at 10 o'clock that morning and woke up, I want to say around 7:30 that night. And I was up throwing up. Like I got really sick. I couldn't breathe. I was sweating. And so it was
just the pain, or
I guess it was the
medication.
The medication and my blood sugar they said it was just because I needed to use the I needed to go use the bathroom. But whenever I did use the restroom, everything just went back to normal. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird situation. That's the only thing I remember from like waking up is the way I felt.
So that had to be pretty discouraging. So you have an injury, you have surgery, you come back, rehab for a year, and then you only play in a few games and you find out they messed up the surgery, and now you're back to having to rehab again. And you have no idea. I mean, they're telling you it's hopeful. Were you pretty discouraged at this time, or what were you feeling?
It was kind of, I had mixed emotions. I was just like, it's just another step, another bump in the road of like my goals and dreams. So yeah, it was kind of disheartening and it was tough mentally at the beginning, just like why is this happening again? Yeah. So I just kept praying and kept thanking God just for blessing me to be able to play the game. And so I just kept working, kept rehabbing, just never had that mindset of like, this is it, like I can't play anymore. So I've worked my way back and fully healthy now, no pain at all. Haven't had any pain since I woke up from that second surgery. So
really, so yes, you're rehabbing everything. You're not feeling the pain that you were. Right. You know, you said something though, Khristian, that I think is really interesting. First of all, see that you tend to have a really positive attitude. You seem
Yes,
to
sir.
be a really positive person. And I mean, psychologists have proven that helps tremendously, and that's really important, especially in athletics, just having that positive. But you also talked about having this attitude of gratitude, that you were just thanking God that you could still play, that you're thanking God. Like, you don't know what's going to happen for sure,
Right.
but you're just thankful.
Yes, sir.
Like, those two things seem like they had an effect then on you.
Yes, sir. Just growing up, I mean, my whole family is just, my grandfather was a pastor. He pastored a church. He traveled all over the country with my dad when my dad was younger, just
Wow.
church to church.
Okay.
Like, and so they went from all the way from California all the way to Mississippi. That's
Yeah.
where they kind of,
So you kind of grew up
in a,
hearing about God and this,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When did you make your faith your own? Like, you've mentioned a couple of things in this podcast that clearly you're a person of faith.
yes, sir.
When did that become your own? Because I grew up too, going to church, and most people that do, at some point in your life, you have to go, this isn't my mom and dad's, this is mine. I'm going to own this faith. When was that for you?
It was, I want to say it was my 7th grade year. In 7th grade is whenever I gave my life to Christ. My youth pastor back in Texas, he was like, we were very close, like really good relationship with my family. And he was one that baptized me and my brothers all together. So it was really cool experience. And I mean, it was unreal, the amount of like support and like the family we had there. And so it was awesome.
So you make that decision, and this is perfect because this podcast is all about the power of choice, human choice, and complexity of choice. That was a choice you made in 7th grade. How has that choice to become a follower of Jesus, how has that affected the other choices you've made and these last, I don't know what it is, that 8 years of your life or whatever?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's been a huge like factor in all decisions I make.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause I could go out, do all this stuff like a bunch of other people do, like party, drink, and that's just not me as a person. That's not who I am. Like, I think about my future before I think about the present. If I could be doing something that could be bettering my future, I'll do that instead of something that could possibly harm it. My dad's taught me that ever since at a young age. Sorry.
About thinking of your future over
Yes,
the
sir.
present. That is huge. That is massive. One of the signs of wisdom is that you don't have to go through experiences to actually learn.
Right.
All of us do. We all make mistakes in life, and we all go through experiences. But you're 20 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct? And you've already recognized that I don't need to go experience these things to understand that they may not be good for me. They may not be good decisions. That's wisdom. But I love what so your dad taught you from a young age that it's very important as you're making decisions or choices to think about your future over the present.
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness.
That's definitely been, especially during baseball, because like you gotta learn like to listen to your body, because they said if I would have kept throwing in that last game that my arm would probably be done for good, because they said it could have been one throw, it could have been 100 throws, like pitches.
Well, that's so interesting what you're saying, Khristian, because you're not just talking about moral decisions, decisions of integrity. You're saying that when you were throwing, you were listening to your body. You knew something was wrong with your arm. But if you wouldn't have paid attention to that and thought about your future over the present, you might have just said, I'm going to finish this game out, or and you could have damaged your arm for good, right?
Right. There was a big chance that that nerve gets completely just cut in half. So it wasn't hanging on by a thread, but it was pretty cut. It was cut through deep.
Yeah.
And so it was through the thicker barrier of the nerve, and it was working its way to the center of it. And once it gets to the center of the nerve, it's shot. It's done.
And this is the nerve they moved?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So
I've actually never heard of that. That's so interesting when you said, they just moved a nerve. So, okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
But you were listening, you were paying attention to that. So really that advice that your dad gave you as a young boy has played out well for you in everything from your integrity, morals, even your physical health, and where you are as an athlete right now. Like, you may not be playing baseball anymore if you didn't follow that advice.
Right. Yes, sir.
Pay attention. That's fascinating. Fascinating. Okay, so you leave A&M. How do you leave A&M, or how do you end up over here at ASU?
So there was some.
I say here because we're sitting in Phoenix. Okay.
There were some disagreements between with the coaching staff at A&M. The new coaching staff at A&M wanted to do with my scholarship and with me. So they were.
And we say new coaching staff because you played this guy you played baseball with. His dad was the coach. That was the big reason you wanted to go, right?
Yes, sir.
To Texas A&M.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then after my freshman year, there was a coaching change. So after my first surgery, there was a coaching change, and this new coaching staff came over to A&M. And honestly, I was not going to stay there until I I was going to enter the transfer portal, and I ended up having a talk with the coaching staff, and they told me what I wanted to hear, and so I ended up staying. And honestly, I probably would have made a better decision just to went ahead and enter the transfer portal. But now that I think about it, but it's definitely like something that
hindsight
led me to
2020,
here.
right?
Right.
But it did. Okay, so that was one of the things that ended up leading you here. If you would have gone in the transport portal, you may not be here.
Correct.
Transfer portal. Yeah. So how did you end up in ASU?
A&M, they wanted to take my scholarship. They were pretty much calling me a liability, that they didn't think I was going to come back as good as I was before. Pretty much just kind of make me, I didn't feel wanted at all once I heard like any of that. So I talked to my family. I was like, first off, my parents, whenever they heard that they were taking my scholarship, they were like, right, it's not, like, you need to get out of there.
You're
it's
gone. Yeah. Did you, let me pause you for just a moment. Did that give you any doubts, or were you still like, I knew I was going to get back? Or did you have any doubts when the college you're playing for is doubting you?
I didn't doubt myself. It just put a chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
So it was one of those, like, those kind of things where, like, I just said, screw this. I'm going somewhere else, and I'm going to make a name for myself. And
a little bit of, I'll show you.
Right. I'll prove myself to you. That was my mindset going into this, like, this whole portal process. And so ASU, the first thing they told me on the phone was, you're an asset to us if we get you. So
it's almost the exact
complete opposite of complete opposite of what I was being told at my previous school. And so as soon as they said that, it clicked, and I fell in love with this coaching staff, the school, the guys, the players. Like, we've all gelled together really well. I couldn't have asked for a better alternative, like, not alternative, but like a fresh start. Yeah. So it's been awesome so far, and now that my little brother's following behind me, and
that's
the
cool
coaches,
that he's coming too. Yeah.
The coaches said they want the Curtis legacy to keep on going. So
nice.
It's definitely been something that it's awesome. I'm gonna be more proud of that.
So when did you transfer to ASU? Like, what do you remember? What month that was?
July of this year.
Okay.
Or last year.
Yeah, just
22.
last July.
Yes, sir.
So
I was only.
And then when did you show up here and start practicing with the team?
We couldn't practice with the team until August, since, like, when school starts, we can't do anything beforehand. Yeah. So once school starts, there's, like, it's called individual stuff. So you can work with your position coach. You can't work as a full team. Yeah. So we would work with the pitching coach, just like, it's called, like, pitch PFPs. It's just us pitchers fielding practice. Yeah. And so it's just us, like, covering bases, like, fielding ground balls back to us, getting it, like, the simple plays that should be made. Yeah. So we do that kind of stuff, but it was late August, early September whenever we started, like, full practices and stuff. So
side question here. How'd you feel when you landed in Phoenix? Because had you ever been here before?
So I've been here once before. It was actually, I came to ASU.
Was it July or August? Like, did you feel like you showed up in hell?
It was September. It was September whenever I came here my junior year of high school. I played for a baseball team called Evo Shield Canes National, and we had a tournament out here in Phoenix. We were playing at, forget which spring training facility it was. Yeah. But it was actually when I first met my advisor, or my agent at the time, and we were connected before then, but it was whenever I got to Phoenix that they saw me, and they were like, all right, we want this kid. Yeah. So that's whenever we, like, made that verbal agreement, because I can't sign anything until once I'm done, like, with ASU. So I can't sign any, like, contracts or with that agency until then. Okay. But they saw me whenever I was 16, 17 years old, and they really liked me. So I was actually came out here with.
You were on their radar for a while then.
Yes, sir. Yeah. The agency, yes, sir. Yeah. And so I came to ASU we were here in Phoenix for that tournament, and ASU was playing Colorado in football. So it was one of ASU. They were ranked at the time, so we were like, all right, let's go. And so me and a couple buddies on the team, we all just kind of got up and got an Uber to the football stadium and went and watched the game. And I was like, this is sick. Just like the scenery,
you liked it.
Oh yeah, I loved everything about it. So that was my first taste of ASU, and I told my parents, like, that night, I was like, if anything ever happened to A&M, like, I know where I want to go. And
really? Isn't that interesting when you back up and look at that?
Right. Yeah. It was crazy. Like, and even, like, whenever I did transfer here, people were, like, reaching out to do, like, interviews with me and, like, interview my family. And they're like, even after, like, he came here in September of, like, 2018 or 17, or no, 2019.
Yeah.
And they were like, he said, if anything ever happened to A&M, this is where you want it to be. And it's crazy, like, to see that happen.
That you're here
so
now.
it's, yes, sir.
Yeah, that is interesting. So you just mentioned something that's interesting too, and a lot of our audience may know. There's a lot of rules for you as an athlete, like what you can and can't do, and as a collegiate athlete, right? But some of that stuff has changed recently too, like the NIL.
Yes, sir.
What is that name? What does that stand for?
Name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's changed fairly recently, right?
Right.
So how is that for you as you're making choices and decisions? You're saying that you can't even really talk to your agent?
I'm allowed to communicate with him. We can't. I just can't sign any papers for it. Like, your advisors, so they're not considered our agents until they actually work for us.
Yeah, and you have to be done playing
college baseball.
Yeah, and then you sign with them.
Yes, sir.
But what are your thoughts on that? The whole NIL, college athletes paid. I mean, I know you're 20. You're not looking back on life with this right now. You're in the midst of it. But what are your thoughts on that? Because there's people who think real positively about it and some that think negatively about it. My son and I argue about it all the time.
I think it's cool if it's not abused. Like, I feel like there's some ways that it's being abused in sports. Like, you can see like all the football stuff, like people going to schools just for the money. Like, my thoughts were, whenever because I don't get NIL money here. Like, I did at A&M, but I don't here. I was in it for
interesting.
baseball.
You were getting it at A&M, but you're not getting it here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was in it for baseball. I wasn't really in it for the checks, like, each month, like NIL deals, and I was just wanting a fresh start. I didn't care about money. I was just wanting to be able to play and put my name back out there. And
and sorry to interrupt you, but Khristian, I can just hear it in your voice that I didn't know that you had that at A&M and you don't now, but it was clear from the way you described this, it is just like almost a rebirth for you in your sporting career.
Yes, sir.
At ASU, and how much you're loving it and the connection, everything, but you actually lost money doing that.
Actually, I got a bigger scholarship from ASU than I did at A&M.
Yeah.
So my school, everything's paid for. I just pretty much pay for my housing.
Yeah.
And so it was I mean, that's huge for my family, especially the cost of living here is a lot more than it is in College Station. So that was the only, like, downside. Not really even a downside, but they're paying less either way. Or we're paying less either way of me here than I was there. So it was definitely, I was getting money through NIL there, which would help. Like, I would help pay for my stuff, but I mean, it's pretty much, it's going to be the same either way now. So the NIL isn't really the reason for my decision of where I went to school and stuff like that. So it was just really specific baseball reasons only.
Well, and I hear you saying that the negative part of it that you see is that some people are making a decision solely based on money sometimes at a pretty young age then.
Right. Yes,
like
sir.
I mean, we're seeing in the news now people that are 16, 17 years old that are being offered all of these things to go to a certain school. That's a pretty young age to be making decisions like that, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah.
Especially just based off money, because they can pull that whenever they want. Like, NIL is not guaranteed. Scholarships are guaranteed, but NIL is just.
I didn't realize that. So you could make a decision, go to a school. You didn't make that decision based on the coaches, things that you should really look at. It was purely on the NIL, and then they could just pull that midway through your freshman year.
From what I understand, like, you can't sign an NIL deal until you are at that school.
Okay.
So they can promise you NIL all they want, and before you even get there to that on campus, and then you get there and it's not what they say it is.
Yeah.
So that's you'll see that everywhere. Like, I don't know if it's. I mean, I think it actually happened to a quarterback that was committed to Florida.
Yeah.
They promised him a certain amount of money, and he decommitted, and then he's at ASU now. He was a freshman, or he's a freshman this coming up here. So you see that happen. And
but at the same time, for a lot of years, you had schools who were making an enormous amount of money off of players, and they were making nothing. And some of them, were playing and maybe didn't have even good scholarships, and they're barely eating. They're eating ramen noodles or something.
Right.
So it's like anything really in life. It's complex, isn't it? There's no
right.
When I worked with the issue of poverty or human trafficking, or I think even with this issue, I always likened it to an onion. There's layer after you peel back a layer, and there's another layer. You peel back a layer, there's another layer. It's a complex issue,
right.
isn't it?
And like, I'm not against NIL. Like, it helps people out, like, that are in need, like the guys that you're saying, like, that are eating ramen noodles. Like, if they're able to get the NIL deals, it helps big time. And so it's definitely something that, like, every now and then I'll kind of look into it, just just kind of see how it like, I don't pay attention to it, but I'll look and see like what's going on in the NIL stuff, and just kind of, because I know there's like some guys that on my team that get NIL money, and I'm just like, don't really care about it.
Does it cause issues on teams? Like if you have some players getting it, some that aren't, have you seen that? Or
no, sir, it doesn't cause any trouble, because they reach out themselves and they get the deals themselves.
Okay.
So like I could, but it's just not a priority to me to reach out and like to get the big NIL deals and stuff whenever I'm just trying to focus on like my task at hand, just get better and stronger, and just keep going out and competing every Saturday. So
okay, so let's jump back to baseball for just a split second. Then I want to get into the complexity of choice and human choice, because you're on the verge of maybe having some things that are absolutely life-changing for you, and maybe generationally life-changing for you.
Yes,
so
sir.
I want to jump into that in a moment, but just back to baseball for a second. So you went through these surgeries. You felt like, man, I can play at this level. I know I can get back to this level in rehab, but you are now, right?
Yes, sir.
So you were talking about, you went from a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball back down to the high 80s. Where are you at now?
I've been back up to the upper 90s. I've been up to 99 opening weekend here. So it was definitely a bit like a big sigh and like sigh of relief to know that like I can still do it. Like it's like I never quit doing it. So it's all, and everything has came back 20 times better than it was before. Like the movement of the pitches.
So it's all coming together now.
Oh yes, sir. It's good stuff. And there's been some big league clubs that are just like, this is top level stuff. Like just keep trusting it. Don't really pay attention to your numbers, because I've had a couple rocky starts. Like it doesn't really show like my stuff.
Yep.
Like I've had some issues with control the last few weeks, and so Saturday I made a big positive step forward and threw a lot more strikes, and so it's definitely like just small, like I call that like a small win. It's just like each week getting better at something, and just those small like achievements add up at the end. So it's kind of something that I think about. Like, don't think about the past, just keep building,
keep moving,
keep building off the past for the future. So
you know what I wish I could do? I didn't play baseball. I played a lot of different sports when I was growing up, but never baseball. I wish I could just stand in because when you're talking about a 99 mile an hour fastball, and again, some of our listeners maybe have never played sports or baseball, I wish I could just stand in the batter's box pretending like I'm batting and just see what that's like. That's got to be awesome to have 99 mile an hour ball come in and just, it's got to hit the glove for the catcher in a certain way, right? That just
the pop. Is it's nice. It's especially like we have great catchers here at ASU, so they know how to catch the ball properly, and every time they do it, it has that satisfying like the bang. So and it's definitely cool. But there's like that, if you watch that Nolan Ryan documentary, or it's like there's some Netflix documentary that's really cool that's got
the Nolan Ryan,
the fastball. It's like 100 miles per hour, and like, so it's definitely something cool if you're not really into baseball and don't know much about the fastball, then that's definitely a cool documentary or Netflix.
Oh, I'll have to look that up. Nolan Ryan. Okay. So the complexity of choice, the power of choice is what this podcast is all about. You're going to be making some pretty big choices. You already have, but you're going to be making some massive choices. What are you doing right now to prepare for that? Like, you could be signing a contract with a professional team. What are you doing to prepare for those changes in your life?
So financially, I'm just trying to make wise decisions with my money. Like, so if I do sign this year, just knowing what to do with it, and they're like putting it away, not touching it. My girlfriend's dad played in the NFL for quite a while, and so he's been through all this process that I'm going through. And
so you have mentors in your life really helping you with this,
right? And he did a really good job with the way he handled his, like, when he signed. Yeah. So I'm a look up to him in that aspect and get advice from him, and have him help me, like, where I need to invest my money into, like what I need to do to just for it to build, and without you really having to touch it. So that's definitely something that I have the assets and the help that I need in order to do that. Yeah. So that's definitely a huge help for me.
You know, you just interviewing you here, I've seen this as something that you've touched on a few times, almost accidentally, but you have some good people in your life, don't you? Like
Yes,
you
sir.
you have a good family. But what I would suggest to someone, if you don't have a good family, you can still go find a mentor.
Right.
But now your girlfriend's dad is someone who's mentoring you, and you've had some good coaches, and such an important part of life in decision making, isn't it? Is having
Yes, sir.
mentors in our life.
It is. It was, even though they're big A&M fans, my girlfriend's family, they come out here every weekend that I pitch. They all support me. They just huge. I love them to death. Like they're awesome to be around, and so it's
so
definitely
they're from Texas then.
Yes, sir.
They must be. Okay.
Yes, sir. They are.
Okay. Oh,
I really
Khristian,
appreciate
man,
it.
we are so excited for you, and I'm going to try to catch you game here in the next couple of weeks. So I know you already gave me a date before we turn the mics on. I'm going to try to come there, watch you play, but really excited for you. And clearly just doing this interview and things that I've heard, you're an amazing young man. And man, I would just encourage you, the little things that you've shared with us as an audience, man, keep going down that path. You have mentors in your life, and I love what your dad taught you, that think of your future, not just the present. One of the dumbest things we do as humans is when we make decisions not thinking about the future. Correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So man, I'm excited about your future, and can't wait to watch you. And thanks for being on here. But we got to finish with this. I always do this with all our guests. It's ironic. We're no gray areas, but I'm going to ask you to lie to us. So the audience has heard you. I've been talking with you here for about 45 minutes. 2 truths and a lie. Now, I'm not going to, I think you wrote something down, so I'm not going to peek. I don't want to cheat here. See if you can stump us.
I've never been out of country.
Okay.
I'm a left-handed pitcher.
Okay.
And I have a golden retriever.
Now, I know you're right-handed because I saw your scar before we turned the mics on. So that one's down. You're right-handed.
I'm right-handed.
Okay. So you're right-handed pitcher.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I have a 50-50 chance. I'm going to say the lie is that you've never been out of the country.
No, I've never been out of country.
So I got it.
So that's the truth.
Oh, that's the truth.
I've never been out.
You don't have the golden retrievers?
I do have a golden retriever.
Oh.
No, so I'm not a left-handed pitcher. That's the lie. So I said I'm a left-handed pitcher.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, I thought you said I got it. I got mixed up. So, okay. All right. Well, I got it. I failed it. The audience might have heard you correctly and guessed right, but I just heard it incorrectly. So, all right. Well, hey, Khristian, thanks again for being on here. We're really excited about your future. And, man, just stay on the straight and narrow and keep fighting the fight, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Incredible interview with Khristian Curtis. What an amazing young man. The thing that stuck out to me the most was when he talked about focusing on your future over present. Take that away with you. And we would love to hear comments. You can leave them below, or you can email me at info@nograyareas.com, info@nograyareas.com. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. No Gray Areas.